My son looked at me and said one sentence that stopped my heart. I smiled, but inside, something broke forever. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and comment below, because what happens next will make you question everything about family, loyalty. Andy never thought a child's words could destroy a grown man. Not screaming, not anger, not hate. Just one calm sentence from my own son. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of evening Americans don't remember because nothing special ever happens on Tuesdays. The sky was fading into that dull orange-gray color, traffic hummed in the distance, and the smell of reheated leftovers filled the kitchen. I had just come home from a 10-hour shift, steel-toed boots kicked off by the door, tie loosened, back aching in that familiar way that told me I was doing my best, even if no one noticed. My wife wasn't home yet. She'd been working late a lot lately. My son Ethan sat at the kitchen island doing homework. He was 12, skinny, quiet, smart in ways that scared me sometimes. "Hey champ," I said, forcing a smile. "How was school?" He didn't look up. Fine. That alone should have warned me. I grabbed a bottle of water, leaned against the counter, and watched him scribble numbers on his worksheet. He looked distant, like he was somewhere else entirely. "Everything okay?" I asked. He paused, then slowly set his pencil down. That's when he looked up at me. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't sad either. They were resolved, like he'd already made a decision. "Dad," he said quietly, "are you really my father?" The room went silent. I laughed at first because that's what adults do when something scares them. "Of course I am," I said. "What kind of question is that?" He didn't laugh. Instead, he tilted his head slightly and said the sentence that changed everything. "Mom says you're just the man who pays for things." I swear the air left my lungs. The clock on the wall kept ticking, loud and unforgiving. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. None came. "Ethan," I said carefully, "why would she say that?" He shrugged. A child's shrugged. Small, casual, devastating. "She said you don't really matter, that you're temporary." Temporary. After 12 years of bedtime stories, little league games, doctor visits, broken hearts, school projects I stayed up all night helping with. Temporary. My hands started shaking. Did she say anything else?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "She said I shouldn't listen to you anymore," he continued, "and that soon, we won't have to pretend." Pretend. I had spent my entire life pretending I was enough. I sat down hard in the chair across from him. My mind raced backward. Late nights, sudden phone calls, passwords changed. The way my wife flinched when I touched her shoulder. I had ignored it all, because good men don't want to believe bad things. "Ethan," I said softly, "do you believe her?" He looked at me for a long moment, and then he said the sentence that broke something inside me forever. "I don't know anymore." That was it. Not betrayal, not hatred. Doubt. A seed planted by the one person I trusted most, and growing inside my son. At that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about cheating. This wasn't about marriage. This was about rewriting my place in my own child's life. And I knew then, if I did nothing, I would disappear. So I made a decision that night, a decision I told no one about. A decision that would expose lies, destroy reputations, and in the end, completely destroy him. Revenge. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slow circles above me, slicing the darkness into pieces. My wife's side of the bed stayed empty until almost 2 in the morning. When she finally slipped in, she smelled like a different soap. Not hers, not mine. She turned her back to me. I didn't say a word because the moment Ethan spoke those words, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I wasn't just a father trying to hold his family together. I was a man being erased. And erased men don't get second chances. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I packed Ethan's lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, a granola bar, the same routine I'd followed for years. My hands moved automatically, but my mind stayed sharp, alert in a way it hadn't been in a long time. My wife Laura walked into the kitchen wearing heels she hadn't worn in years. "Morning," she said, barely looking at me. "Morning," I replied evenly. Ethan came down the stairs, backpack slung over one shoulder. He glanced between us like he was measuring the temperature in the room. "Dad," he said quietly, "can you drop me off today?" Laura stiffened. "I can take him," she said quickly. Ethan shook his head. "I want Dad." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Fine. That drive to school felt longer than usual. The radio played softly, some pop song I didn't recognize. Ethan stared out the window. Ethan, I said gently, I want you to know something. He turned to me. No matter what anyone says, I love you. I always will. He nodded, but there was uncertainty there, a crack I hadn't noticed before. When I dropped him off, he hesitated before closing the door. I love you too. That, he said. I waited until he was inside the building before I let myself breathe. Then, I followed Laura. She didn't notice it. First, she drove like someone with a destination. She'd rehearsed 100 times. Confident, unafraid, the route to her office. 10 minutes later, she pulled into a shopping center parking lot. My heart started pounding. I parked across the street, far enough to stay invisible but close enough to see. She checked her phone, smiled. Then, a black SUV pulled in beside her, and a man stepped out, tall, clean-cut, expensive watch, the kind of man who looks like he's never had to beg for anything in his life. He opened her door. She laughed, not the polite laugh she gave me anymore, the real one. They hugged, long, familiar, intimate. Then they kissed. Not a quick, guilty kiss, a kiss that said this wasn't new. My hands clenched around the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. But it wasn't the kiss that destroyed me. It was what happened next. He bent down slightly and whispered something in her ear. She nodded, and then she said words I would never forget. I told him exactly what you said. My blood ran cold. They got back into their cars and drove off in opposite directions. I followed the SUV. I needed to know who he was. He drove to a sleek office building downtown, glass walls, private parking, security at the entrance, the kind of place that screamed power. A name was displayed near the door. Marcus Hall, family law, Hetornui family law, divorce. Custody. Everything suddenly made sense. This wasn't an affair fueled by lust. This was strategy. That afternoon, I went home early and sat at the dining table with my laptop open. I searched his name. Marcus Hall wasn't just a lawyer. He specialized in high-asset divorces. Men like me, steady income, clean record, devoted fathers, were his favorite targets. Men like me trusted the system. I kept digging, reviews, court records, articles. Then, I found something that made my stomach drop. A seminar, transcript, reframing parental authority in custody disputes. One line stood out. Children must emotionally detach from the weaker parent before litigation begins. I slammed the laptop shut. Weaker parent. Me. Night. Laura came home cheerful, too cheerful. She hummed while cooking dinner, asked about my day, even touched my arm. I played along. After dinner, Ethan went to his room. Laura sat across from me on the couch. We need to talk, she said. I nodded. About what? She took a deep breath. I think we've grown apart. There it was. The script. I've been unhappy for a long time, she continued, and I don't think you're the man I need anymore. I kept my face calm. What about Ethan? I asked. She hesitated. That's complicated. Complicated. I nodded slowly. I understand, I said. Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected that you do. She asked. Yes, I replied. If you're unhappy, I don't want to stand in your way. Relief washed over her face. That was the moment I knew. She thought I was weak. She thought I would roll over. She had no idea what I had already seen. Later that night, I stood outside Ethan's bedroom door listening to him breathe. Steady, innocent. I placed my hand on the wall. I won't let them take you from me, I whispered. And then I made the second decision. If Marcus Hall thought he could destroy my place in my son's life, I would destroy his entire world first. The office was smaller than I expected. Not some dark, shady basement with flickering lights like in the movies. Just a clean, second-floor suite tucked above a nail salon and a closed-down travel agency. A frosted glass door read, Harris & Co. Investigation. Sat in my car for a full minute before going in, because walking through that door meant I was no longer pretending this was a misunderstanding. It meant I was accepting the truth. My marriage was over, and my son was being used as a weapon. I took a breath and stepped inside. Woman in her late 40s looked up from behind the desk. Short hair, sharp eyes, the kind that missed nothing. You must be David, she said. I'm Renee. She didn't offer condolences. She didn't ask how I was feeling. She slid a clipboard toward me instead. Tell me what you want to know, she said, and tell me how far you're willing to go. That question sat heavy between us. I want the truth, I said, about Marcus Hall. She nodded once. Then you're already ahead of most people. 2 days later, she called me back. Her voice on the phone was calm, too calm. You should come in, she said. This isn't something I want to explain over the phone. My stomach dropped. When I arrived, she handed me a thick folder. Photos, bank records, screenshots, printed emails. This man, she said, tapping the folder, is very good at looking clean. She opened it. The first picture showed Marcus stepping out of his SUV, but not with my wife, with a different woman, younger, blonde, wedding ring visible. That's his wife, Renee said, or at least, legally. My pulse quickened. He's married, I asked. Very, she replied. 2 kids, private school, PTA Dad of the Year. I flipped the page. Another woman. Different city, different date. He's been having affairs for years, Renee continued. Clients, colleagues, women he meets at conferences. My jaw tightened. But that's not the worst part. She slid a document across the table. A non-disclosure settlement, 6 figures, paid out quietly. For what? I asked. Renee met my eyes. Coercion, she said. Emotional manipulation, threatening custody outcomes if women didn't comply. I felt sick. He uses his position as leverage, she continued. He preys on women who feel trapped. Then he convinces them he's their only way out. Laura. I saw it clearly now. This is illegal, I said. Very, Renee agreed, but he's careful. Most victims are too afraid to come forward. I leaned back in my chair. And you? I asked. She smiled faintly. I'm not afraid. That night, I sat in my car outside my house, folder in my lap. But revenge wasn't my goal. Protection was. Because Marcus wasn't just trying to take my wife. He was trying to erase me from my son's life. I went inside and found Laura in the kitchen scrolling through her phone. Who's Marcus Hall? I asked casually. She froze. Just for half a second. But it was enough. He's a lawyer, she said. Why? No reason, I replied. Just came across his name at work. She nodded to fast. That night, I heard her whispering in the bathroom. I think he suspects something, she said. Pause. Double quotes. No, I don't think he knows yet. I closed my eyes. You were wrong. The next day, I met with a different lawyer, a woman named Claire Bennett, family law. But unlike Marcus, she didn't manipulate. She prepared. He's planning to file first, she said after reviewing the evidence. That gives him an advantage. How do I stop it? I asked. You don't, she said calmly. You outplay it. She leaned forward. You document everything, every interaction, every inconsistency, and you protect your relationship with your son at all costs. That night, Ethan sat beside me on the couch watching TV. Dad, he said suddenly, are you mad at Mom? No, I said. I'm not mad. That was true. I was focused. Are we going to move? He asked. I swallowed. No matter what happens, I said, you and I are going to be okay. He leaned against me. For the first time in days, I felt like I still existed. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message. Marcus Hall, we need to talk. Man to man. I stared at the screen. He wasn't hiding anymore. He thought he had already won. I typed back slowly. Me. Anytime. Because the truth was, by the time Marcus realized what I knew, it would already be too late. Marcus chose the restaurant. Of course he did. An upscale downtown place with white tablecloths, valet parking, and prices that silently reminded you who had power. The kind of place where deals were made quietly and threats were wrapped in smiles. I arrived 10 minutes early, not because I was eager, but because I wanted to observe. Marcus Hall was already there, seated comfortably, back straight, phone face down on the table like he owned the room. When he saw me, he stood and smiled like we were old friends. David, he said warmly, extending his hand. I'm glad you came. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, confident, practiced. This won't take long, he added, gesturing for me to sit. The waiter came. Marcus ordered without looking at the menu. I ordered coffee. Black. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus leaned forward. I'll be direct, he said, because I respect you. That was my first warning. Men who say they respect you while trying to ruin you are the most dangerous kind. You're a good provider, he continued. Stable, consistent, predictable. There's no need for this to get ugly. he said. Laura wants a clean transition, minimal conflict, for Ethan's sake. I stirred my coffee slowly. And what does that look like? I asked. Tati smiled. Joint custody on paper, he said. Primary residence with Laura. You get weekends, holidays on rotation. One looked up. That's not joint custody, I said. He shrugged. It's reality. There it was. Not advice, a verdict. And if I don't agree, I asked. His smile faded slightly. Then things become uncomfortable. He reached into his jacket and placed a thin folder on the table. Witness statements, he said. Character assessments, concerns about emotional stability. I didn't touch it. From whom? I asked. He leaned in. Your son, he said softly. My blood went cold. He's confused. Marcus continued. Children are impressionable, especially when they sense tension, but courts listen to them. I stared at him. You've been coaching him, I said. Bofta didn't deny it. I've been helping Laura protect him, he replied calmly. From instability. Instability. Because I worked long hours, because I trusted my wife, because I believed in family. I took a slow breath. Let me ask you something, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Of course. Do you always sleep with your clients? I asked. Or is my wife special? For the first time, his composure cracked. Just slightly. That's inappropriate, he said. Is it? I replied. Because coercion is illegal. So is manipulating a minor in a custody dispute. His eyes hardened. You're out of your depth, he said. And you're emotional. I smiled. Because he had no idea. I reached into my pocket and pressed the button on my phone. Recording still running. Let me be clear, Marcus continued, unaware. If you fight this, you will lose. Slowly, painfully, and Ethan will grow up believing you abandoned him. That was the sentence, the one that sealed everything. I leaned forward. You're not taking my son, I said quietly. Marcus laughed. That decision isn't yours anymore. We stood. He straightened his jacket. Be smart, he said. Sign the agreement. Disappear gracefully. He walked away. And that's when I knew. Marcus Hall didn't just want to win. He wanted to erase me. That afternoon, I went straight to Claire's office. I placed my phone on her desk. Listen to this, I said. She listened. Her face changed. This, she said slowly, is gold. That night, Laura confronted me. You met him, she said accusingly. Why? I wanted to understand, I replied. She crossed her arms. He's trying to help us, she said. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I looked at her. When did you stop seeing me as Ethan's father? I asked. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. I went to Ethan's room later. He was on his bed, headphones on. I sat beside him. Hey, I said. He pulled one side off. Dad, no matter what happens, I said, you don't ever have to choose sides. He looked relieved. I don't want to, he said. Good. Because the adults had already chosen war. That night, I sent Renee one word. Proceed. Because if Marcus wanted to destroy me in court, I would expose him everywhere else. Marcus Hall underestimated one thing. Not my patience, not my intelligence. He underestimated how dangerous a quiet man becomes once he accepts he has nothing left to lose. The evidence didn't drop all at once. That was intentional. Renee warned me early on. You don't drop a bomb. You let the cracks show first. Power doesn't fall from explosions. It collapses under pressure. So we applied pressure. The first move was subtle. An anonymous complaint was filed with the State Bar Association. Clean, professional, no emotion, just facts, dates, names, documentation, enough to force a review, not enough to alert Marcus immediately. At the same time, a sealed affidavit was submitted by a former client of his, a woman he'd coerced years ago. She had stayed silent because she'd been afraid of losing her kids. She wasn't afraid anymore. The second move hit closer to home. Marcus's wife, Renee, arranged for the photos to be delivered anonymously. No return address, no note, just timestamps, locations, evidence that couldn't be explained away as coincidence. That same week, Marcus counseled 2 court appearances, then 3. I noticed the change. Immediately. The confident tone in his emails vanished. The arrogance softened. The man who once spoke in ultimatums started asking questions. Then came the phone call. Unknown number. I answered. David, Marcus said, his voice tight. We need to meet again. No, I replied. This is serious, he said. There are misunderstandings. You called me predictable. I said calmly. Predictable men don't scare you. Disperachuans do. Silence. You've crossed the line, he said finally. I smiled to myself. No, I replied. You did. I just stopped pretending I wouldn't notice. He exhaled sharply. What do you want? He asked. That was the moment. The shift. When the hunter realizes he's being hunted. I want you out, I said. Out of my marriage, out of my custody case, out of my son's life. He scoffed weakly. That's not how this works. Then maybe you should ask your wife, I replied, how it feels when the ground disappears under your feet. He hung up. That night, Laura didn't come home. Ethan asked where she was. She's figuring some things out, I said gently. He nodded, but he didn't look relieved. He looked confused, and that hurt more than any betrayal. The next morning, Laura finally came back. Her eyes were red, her face pale. Did you do this? She demanded, slamming her phone onto the counter. Marcus's name glowed on the screen. Missed calls, voicemails, dozens. I told you the truth would come out, I said evenly. You're destroying him, she said, voice shaking. I looked at her. No, I said quietly. I'm stopping him from destroying us. She laughed bitterly. You think this makes you the good guy? I think it makes me a father who refuses to disappear, I replied. She turned away. That afternoon, Ethan came home early. He stood in the doorway, backpack still on. Dad, he said, kids at school are saying weird things. My chest tightened. What kind of things? He hesitated. They said, Mom's lawyer is in trouble, that he hurts families. I knelt in front of him. Listen to me, I said. Adults make mistakes. Big ones, but none of this is your fault. He swallowed. Did I do something wrong? He asked. That question almost broke me. No, I said firmly. You did nothing wrong, ever. That night, Laura packed a bag. I need space, she said. I know, I replied. Before she left, she looked at me one last time. You've changed, she said. No, I answered. I finally stopped being blind. 3 days later, Marcus Hall was officially suspended pending investigation. News travels fast in legal circles. Faster than lies can outrun the truth. Claire called me that afternoon. He's stepping down from Laura's case, she said, effective immediately. I closed my eyes. It wasn't victory. Not yet, because the most dangerous moment isn't when your enemy is powerful. It's when they're desperate. That night, I got another message. This one wasn't a threat, it was worse. Marcus Hall, you think this is over. It's not. If I go down, I'm taking something you love with me. I stared at the screen, because I knew exactly what he meant. And for the first time since this began, I felt fear. Not for myself, for my son. The call came at 11:42 a.m. I remember the time because I stared at my phone afterward like the numbers might change if I willed them to. Mr. Cotter, the woman said, this is the school office. Ethan didn't report to his second period class. I stood up so fast my chair scraped across the floor. What do you mean he didn't report? I asked. He was marked present this morning, she said, voice calm, rehearsed. But when the bell rang, he wasn't there. We're still searching the campus. My heart slammed against my ribs. I'm on my way, I said, already grabbing my keys. The drive felt unreal. Red lights blurred into streaks. My hands shook so badly I could barely keep the wheel steady. By the time I reached the school, police were already there. 2 officers stood near the front office. One of them held a clipboard. When was the last time you saw him? The officer asked. 8 o'clock, I said. I dropped him off myself. Any custody disputes? He asked, not looking up. Yes, I said. Active and contentious. He finally met my eyes. Anyone who might take him, he asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes, Marcus Hall. They locked down the school. Backpacks were searched, security footage reviewed. Minutes stretched into hours. Laura arrived shortly after noon. Frantic, mascara streaked down her face. This is your fault, she cried. You pushed him. I didn't argue. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew. At 1:19 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message. He's safe. For now. My vision went dark around the edges. I showed the message to the officer. Do not respond, he said. We'll handle this. But before I could agree, another message appeared. Meet me alone, or the next message won't be so friendly. The officer shook his head. This is a crime. Kidnapping. Extortion. I know, I said. But if I wait, he suffers. I turned to Laura. Did Marcus ever mention places he takes kids? I asked. She froze. Then, she whispered, the marina. My blood ran cold. Marcus had mentioned it casually once. Boats, sailing lessons, networking with wealthy families. The officer spoke into his radio, dispatching units. I didn't wait. The marina was 20 minutes away. I broke speed limits I didn't know existed. When I arrived, I spotted Marcus's SUV near the far end of the lot. I parked and walked, slowly, because panic would get my son hurt. Marcus stood near a small dock, phone in hand, looking thinner than before, desperate, hollow. Ethan sat on a bench nearby, unharmed, alive. The moment he saw me, his face crumpled. Dad, he shouted. Bafta stepped between us. Careful, he said. You don't want to scare him. I felt something primal rise in my chest. You touch him again, I said, voice shaking, and there won't be a courtroom left to save you. Marcus laughed weakly. Always the hero. He said, even now, what do you want? I asked. He glanced at Ethan. I want this to stop, he said. All of it. The investigation, the complaints, the exposure. You committed crimes, I said. You don't get to negotiate. You're wrong, he said. Because I already am. He pulled out his phone, a recording. Laura's voice, crying, admitting things out of context, threatening statements stitched together. This goes to the police, he said, and the courts, and your employer. You think custody is hard now? I looked at Ethan. He was trembling. Dad, he whispered, I'm scared. That was it. I stepped forward. You let him go, I said. Right now. Marcus sneered. Or what? I smiled, because he had no idea. Police sirens echoed in the distance, his face drained of color. You called them, he hissed. I told you, I said calmly. Quiet men plan. Officers swarmed the dock. Marcus tried to run. He didn't get far. They cuffed him while Ethan ran into my arms. Sobbing, I held him like I was holding the universe together. Later that night, after statements and tears and paperwork, Ethan sat beside me on the couch. Dad, he said softly, he told me you didn't care about me. My chest tightened. What did you say? I asked. I said he was lying, Ethan replied. Because you came. I closed my eyes. That night, Laura called. They arrested him. She said, everything is falling apart. Yes, I said, it is. But what about us? She asked. I was silent, because the truth was clear. Now, this wasn't about destroying Marcus anymore. It was about saving my son, and the next decision I made would change our family forever. Marcus didn't ask for a lawyer. That alone told me how deep the damage went. Men like him, men who are lawyers, don't panic unless the ground beneath them has completely collapsed. He asked for a deal. And when desperate men make deals, they don't offer the truth, they offer names. I found out 2 days after Ethan came home. Claire called me early in the morning. Sit down before I tell you this, she said. I was already seated at the kitchen table, staring at Ethan's untouched cereal bowl. Marcus cooperated, she continued. Partially. My stomach dropped. With whom? I asked. She paused. Internal affairs, the DA and family court oversight. I exhaled slowly. What did he give them? She hesitated again. Laura. The room went quiet. He told them, Claire said carefully, that Laura knowingly participated in parental alienation, that she followed his instructions, that she coached Ethan and recorded conversations. My chest tightened. That's a lie, I said automatically. Not entirely, Claire replied. He has evidence. She emailed me the files. Audio recordings. Emails. Messages. Laura single quotes as voice.com. Deliberate repeating Marcus's language word for word. We need Ethan, emotionally aligned before filing. David is replaceable. Children adapt faster than adults. I felt sick. This wasn't manipulation anymore. This was collaboration. Drove to Laura's apartment that afternoon. She didn't deny it. I was scared, she said, pacing the room. He said I'd lose Ethan if I didn't follow his plan. So you destroyed me instead? I asked quietly. She broke down. I didn't think it would go this far, she cried. I thought you'd move on, start over. I didn't think Ethan would get hurt. I stared at her. You let a man convince our son his father didn't matter, I said. That's not fear, that's betrayal. She reached for me. I stepped back. That night, Ethan asked a question no parent ever wants to hear. Dad, did Mom lie to me? I knelt in front of him. Your mom made mistakes, I said carefully. Big ones, but she knew, he asked. She knew what he was doing. I nodded slowly. His face changed. Something innocent disappeared. I trusted her, he whispered. That was the moment. The real destruction, not Marcus, not the affair, but the loss of trust between a mother and her child. Family court moved fast after that. Emergency hearings, temporary orders. Marcus was charged with kidnapping, coercion, and obstruction. Laura was placed under supervised visitation. The judge looked at me during the hearing. Mr. Carter, she said, you remained focused on your child's welfare throughout this process. I swallowed. I just didn't want to disappear, I said. She nodded. You won't, she replied. Outside the courthouse, Laura collapsed onto a bench. I didn't mean to hurt him, she sobbed. I believed her, but belief doesn't undo damage. Ethan refused to see. Her. Days passed. Then weeks. One night, Ethan sat beside me on the couch. Dad, he said quietly, is it okay if I don't want to talk to Mom yet? I put my arm around him. It's okay to protect your heart, I said. He leaned into me. Think she knows who I am anymore, he whispered. And that's when I understood something devastating. Marcus didn't destroy our family. Laura helped him. And the worst part, she didn't even realize she was doing it. The media picked up the story. A prominent family lawyer accused of manipulating custody outcomes. Anonymous sources. Court documents leaked. Marcus Hall became untouchable. His firm cut ties. His wife filed for divorce. His reputation, the thing he valued more than anything, collapsed overnight. The punishment didn't stop there because Marcus had one more secret, and he gave it up to save himself. A name. Another lawyer, another judge. Another system quietly feeding on broken families. And suddenly, this wasn't just my story anymore. It was bigger, much bigger. That night, I tucked Ethan into bed. Dad, he asked, yes, are you ever going to forgive Mom? I paused. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back, I said. It means not letting anger control you. He nodded slowly. I don't hate her, he said. I just don't trust her. That sentence hit harder than anything Marcus ever said. Because trust, once broken, never grows back the same way. And the final decision still lay ahead. Court wasn't finished. Neither was the damage. Because the next part of this story isn't about revenge. It's about what I did next, and why some people say I destroyed him. The courthouse smelled like old paper and disinfectant. I remember that because my senses were sharper than they had ever been. Every sound echoed: heels against marble, whispered conversations, the distant slam of a door. It felt like the building itself was holding its breath. This was it. The final custody hearing. Ethan sat beside me in a navy blue blazer that still smelled faintly of the department store. His feet didn't quite reach the floor. He looked smaller in that courtroom. Younger. Like the weight of adult decisions didn't belong anywhere. Near him, Laura sat across the aisle. She looked different. Not defiant. Not angry. Just hollow. When our eyes met, she looked away. The judge entered. And everyone rose. Family court doesn't have the drama of criminal courtrooms you see on TV. No shouting, no sudden twists. Just quiet decisions that alter lives forever. The judge adjusted her glasses and began. I've reviewed the evidence, she said evenly. The recordings, the communications, the psychological evaluations. She paused. This case involves severe parental alienation, emotional manipulation, and third-party coercion. My heart pounded. Mr. Carter, she continued, looking at me, your conduct throughout this process remained focused on your son's emotional stability. She turned to Laura. Mrs. Carter, your actions, regardless of intent, caused significant emotional harm. Laura's hands trembled. Then the words came. I am awarding sole legal and physical custody to the father. The room went silent. Ethan inhaled sharply. Laura gasped. Visitation, the judge continued, will be supervised and contingent upon completion of court-mandated therapy. Laura broke down. Not dramatically. Quietly. Kind of crying that comes when denial finally dies. But that wasn't the condition that changed everything. The judge leaned forward. However, she said, there is one additional requirement. My stomach tightened. Given the extent of manipulation involved, she said, the court recommends a period of no contact initiated at the child's discretion. I looked down at Ethan. The judge addressed him directly. Ethan, she said gently, you are old enough for your voice to matter here. You may choose when and if you want to resume contact with your mother. The power of that moment crushed me. No child should have to carry that. Wait. Ethan didn't answer right away. He stared straight ahead. The courtroom waited. Finally, he spoke. I don't want to see her right now, he said quietly. I need time. Laura let out a sound I'll never forget. Not anger, not rage. Lost. The gavel struck. Just like that, it was over. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. I shielded Ethan with my body. Reporters shouted questions. Do you feel vindicated? Is this revenge? Do you think the mother was manipulated? I didn't answer, because this wasn't a victory lap, it was survival. That night, Ethan didn't talk much. He sat at the kitchen table, turning his fork over and over. Did I do the right thing? He asked finally. I sat beside him. There's no right choice, I said. Only the one that keeps you safe. He nodded. I don't feel safe with her, he admitted. Not yet. That honesty hurt, because it wasn't supposed to be this way. Weeks passed. Therapy sessions, school adjustments, quiet evenings. Marcus Hall accepted a plea deal. Disbarment, prison, time. The news framed him as a monster. But monsters don't work alone. Laura tried to reach out through her therapist. Letters, apologies. Ethan didn't read them. Then one evening, he asked something that chilled me. Dad, he said, why did Marcus hate you so much? I thought about it. He didn't hate me, I said slowly. He didn't see me at all. That realization changed how Ethan looked at the world, because children learn from what they see adults get away with, and Ethan had seen too much. One afternoon, I received a call from a number I recognized. Marcus. From prison. Against my lawyer's advice, I answered. You won, he said bitterly. No, I replied. You lost. He laughed. You think this ends with me, he said. I shaped your son. You'll see it someday. That was when I understood. Marcus believed damage was permanent. The children were tools. And that's when I made the decision people still argue about to this day. The decision that some say crossed a line. The decision that destroyed him. I filed a civil lawsuit. Not for money. For precedent. For public record. For exposure. Every email. Every recording. Every tactic. I made sure Marcus Hall's name would follow him forever. No consulting. No reinvention. No quiet comeback. When Ethan found out, he asked, why keep going? I looked at him. So no one ever does this to you? I said. Or anyone else? That night, Ethan slept peacefully for the first time in months. But the story wasn't over, because healing doesn't come from courtrooms, it comes from choices. And in the next part, my son would make one that changed me. Ethan asked on a Sunday afternoon, no warning, no build-up. We were sitting on the porch, the late fall air cool enough that I'd pulled a hoodie over his shoulders. He was scrolling on his phone, pretending not to think too hard about anything. Dad, he said casually, I think I want to see Mom. My heart stopped. I didn't answer right away. I had learned the hard way that rushing moments like this could shatter something fragile. Are you sure? I asked gently. He nodded, not to forgive her, just to understand. That sentence told me more about my son than any custody evaluation ever could. The meeting was scheduled through therapists, lawyers, and supervisors. Neutral room. Cameras, a counselor present. Controlled. Safe.org. At least as safe as something like this could be. When we arrived, Laura was already there. She stood when she saw Ethan, then stopped herself. Like she didn't know if she was allowed to exist in his space anymore. Ethan didn't run to her. He didn't hug her. He simply sat down across from her and folded his hands in his lap. The counselor nodded. Whenever you're ready. Laura spoke first. I'm sorry, she said immediately, voice breaking. I'm so sorry. Ethan watched her, not angrily, not lovingly, carefully. You said Dad didn't matter, he said quietly. Laura flinched. I was wrong, she said. I let someone poison my thinking. You said he was temporary, Ethan continued, that he was just someone who paid for things. Tears streamed down her face. I know, she whispered. I was selfish. I was scared. Ethan leaned back slightly. Did you mean it? He asked. That was the question. The one no adult ever wants a child to ask. Laura hesitated, and that hesitation told Ethan everything. You thought it, he said, even if you don't now. She nodded slowly. Yes, she admitted, and that's something I'll regret for the rest of my life. The room was silent. Then Ethan said something that stunned everyone. I don't hate you, he said, but I don't trust you either. Laura sobbed openly now. I know I don't deserve it, she said, but I want to earn it back. Ethan shook his head. You don't earn trust by wanting it, he said. You earn it by not using people. The counselor glanced at me, surprised. That wasn't a child speaking. That was wisdom forged by pain. Laura looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. I broke our family, she said. No, Ethan replied. Marcus did, and you helped him. Those words landed like a verdict. The meeting ended shortly after. Outside, Ethan exhaled deeply, like he'd been holding his breath for months. How do you feel? I asked. Tired, he said, but lighter. That night, after Ethan went to bed, I sat alone in the living room. That's when the call came. Marcus Hall. Again. From prison. This time, his voice was different, not arrogant, not threatening, empty. They took everything, he said. My license, my reputation, my future. You took that from yourself, I replied. He laughed bitterly. Do you know what your son said in court? He asked suddenly. I froze. What? I asked. He told the evaluator he never wanted to be like me, Marcus said, that I was the kind of man who destroys families for sport. I closed my eyes, Marcus continued. You didn't just beat me, he said. You exposed me to myself. Silence. That's what destroyed me, he admitted. Not prison, not disbarment, being seen. When I hung up, I realized something uncomfortable. The title of this story had never really been about revenge, that it was about consequences. Marcus didn't fall because I attacked him, he fell because I refused to disappear. Ethan changed after that meeting. He became quieter, more observant. One night, he asked me something that surprised me. Dad, he said, were you ever scared you'd turn into him? I thought about it. Yes, I said honestly. That's why I didn't. He nodded. I think that's why Mom didn't stop herself, he said. She didn't think she could become someone bad. That insight broke my heart. Because it was true. Laura had never believed she was capable of harm, which made the harm deeper. Weeks later, Ethan agreed to short, supervised visits. Short, careful, bound red. Laura followed every rule. She spoke less, listened more. It would take years to rebuild anything resembling trust, and maybe it never fully would. But healing isn't about restoring the past. It's about building something honest on top of what's broken. Then came the letter from Marcus. Handwritten. He apologized. Not to me. To Ethan. He admitted everything. Manipulation, ego, control. I thought power made me untouchable, he wrote. Your father showed me, it made me hollow. Ethan read it once, then handed it back to me. Some people don't need forgiveness, he said. They need limits. I kept the letter, not out of sympathy, but as a reminder. The final chapter wasn't about destruction. It was about definition. About what kind of man my son would become, and what kind of man I already was. But there was still one piece left, one truth I hadn't told Ethan yet. And in the final part, I finally did. Ethan turned 13 on a quiet Saturday morning. No big party, no crowd. Just pancakes, a single wrapped gift on the table, and sunlight pouring through the kitchen window, like the world was giving us permission to breathe again. Trauma changes how you celebrate things. Joy becomes careful. Measured. Still real. Just earned. He cut into his pancakes slowly, then looked up at me. Dad, he said, can I ask you something? Always, I replied. Why didn't you ever tell me everything? He asked. From the beginning. I knew this moment would come. I had been carrying the truth like a stone in my chest for months, waiting for the day he was strong enough to hear it, without it becoming another wound. I slid the wrapped gift aside. There's something I need to tell you, I said. He sat up straighter. I took a breath. The day you asked me if I was really your father, I began. I almost broke. He looked down. I know, he said quietly. No, I continued. You don't. I told him everything. Not in graphic detail, not with bitterness. But with honesty. I told him about the fear, about following his mother that morning, about realizing someone was trying to take my place in his life without ever asking him what he wanted. I told him the hardest truth of all. That night, I said, voice steady but heavy, I didn't decide to destroy Marcus. I decided to protect you, even if it meant people would hate me for it. Ethan was silent. Then he asked the question I had feared most. Did you ever think about using me to win? He asked. My chest tightened. No, I said firmly. That line mattered to me more than winning. The moment I crossed it, I would have become him. He nodded slowly. That's why you always asked what I wanted, he said. Even when it scared you? Yes, I said. He thought, for a long time. Then, he said the sentence that healed what his first one had broken. You didn't destroy him, Ethan said. He destroyed himself. You just didn't save him. I felt tears rise, the kind that come from release, not pain. I handed him the gift. Inside was a leather-bound notebook. What's this? He asked. For your words, I said. The ones that matter, the ones you don't want anyone else to twist. He ran his fingers over the cover. I think, he said slowly, I want to write the truth, even if it makes people uncomfortable. I smiled. That's how it starts, I said. Later that day, Laura came for a short, supervised visit. She brought a small gift, and didn't push, didn't beg, didn't cry. That restraint mattered. Ethan thanked her politely. Nothing more. Trust doesn't come back with apologies. It comes back with consistency. As she left, she looked at me. You won, she said quietly. I shook my head. No, I replied. He survived. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That night, after Ethan went to bed, I sat alone on the porch. I thought about Marcus, a man who thought power meant control, a man who believed people were tools, a man who never understood that the moment you try to erase a parent from a child's life, you don't win custody, you create damage that echoes forever. Marcus lost everything he'd valued, but that wasn't the destruction that mattered. The real destruction was this: he would never again be able to pretend he was a good man. And that's a prison no sentence can match. Months later, Ethan brought me the notebook. Can I read you something? He asked. Of course, I said. He cleared his throat and read. I learned that adults don't hurt you because they're strong. They hurt you because they're afraid of being seen. My dad stayed when it was easier to disappear. That's how I know what kind of man I want to be. I closed my eyes. Because in that moment, I understood the true meaning of the title. One sentence from my son changed everything. What I did next destroyed him, not through violence, not through revenge, but by refusing to play the game, by choosing truth over ego, protection over pride, presence over power. And if this story leaves you with one lesson, let it be this: when someone tries to turn your child into a weapon, the bravest thing you can do is stay human.